Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shaman and the Philosopher here at the Institute for NASA Philosophy. Today I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce a visionary storyteller who's not afraid to probe the edge of the known universe. Our guest is Corey Dobbs, the award-winning director, editor, and screenwriter behind the groundbreaking documentary Blue Planet Red, a mind-expanding exploration of Mars' hidden history, from ancient oceans and microbial life to enigmatic ruins and cosmic cataclysms that may have silenced a once thriving world.
As a documentary filmmaker and Mars disclosure journalist, Brian has captivated audiences worldwide. With his masterful blend of cutting-edge science, stunning visuals, and unflinching curiosity about NASA's most tantalizing discoveries. Whether he's crafting videos that bridge the gap between complex ideas and human wonder, or diving deep into the red planet secrets, Brian here reminds us that the cosmos is full of stories waiting to be told. Brian Corey Dobbs, welcome to the Shaman and the Philosopher. We're honored to have you, sir.
Wow, what an intro. My gosh. I feel so. That's great, guys. Thank you so much.
No, it's well deserved. It's well deserved. So we talked, as I was saying, we talked about 1 year and 2 or 3 months back time, and I think that some things have changed for the better. So let us know what has. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what changed from the last time that we talked.
Well, I guess the major update is that when you saw the film recorder, it had not yet been picked up for distribution. So now it is distributed by a major domestic distributor, and you can find it on Amazon and a few other platforms. And I have some people in foreign countries who haven't yet had a chance to see it, but the good news is that later this month the film will be made available to foreign markets as well. There'll be, the audience will be able to find it.
Awesome. So, to the people that are not familiarized, tell us a little bit what they can see in your amazing documentary that I strongly recommend.
Sure. Okay. So, how should we say?
Brian, I'm gonna.
Yes.
Can I add to this?
Yes.
Can we give you a compound question here? Because what really interests me too, as somebody who's not familiar with you, is I would like to know, of course, about your work. Catch us up, as though we have no idea who you are. But also, I'm curious about. I like the word passion, right? I think people who find themselves in positions like us doing this stuff largely on our own, passion is a driving force for us. So I'm just interested in what was that for you? What sort of was that seed or that passion that put you now sitting in front of me with all this work under your belt?
Yeah, I don't think I'm too dissimilar from other folks like you guys and all these other people in the independent researcher community. I don't consider myself to be a researcher. I do consider myself to be more of a communicator, more specifically a filmmaker. But I've always been drawn to this question of extraterrestrial life. And given the recent interest in this UFO phenomenon, especially by, Congress, let's say, and institutions, it's a thing now. It's incredible. It's a thing. Now, I ended up going down a slightly different path with Mars because, as it turns out, there's a whole lot about Mars that I wasn't aware of. And once I learned it, I'm like, I bet you most people aren't aware of this stuff either. So I'm like, I felt compelled. I was sitting around there thinking, how come no one's done a movie about this? Surely someone has put this together. And unfortunately, that was not the case. All of the information that I covered in my documentary was published in one form or another, whether it be a research paper, video on YouTube, blog post here or there. But nothing that connected it all into one cohesive story. You have the people who were talking about Mars. You have the traditional narrative. Okay, Mars is this boring desert wasteland of a planet today. Was it always? And the answer is no. It used to be more like Earth. And so if you just start thinking about that for a little bit, if it used to be more like Earth, what does that mean? It used to be blue. It used to have a thicker atmosphere. It used to have large bodies of water. And so then the question logically becomes, well, was there life there? So anyway, I went down this path, and then I kept on learning more and more and more. And there's a whole, bottom line is there's a whole lot about Mars that NASA has discovered that unfortunately they haven't really done a good job talking about. Their public relations as it relates to their discoveries is lackluster.
Yeah, it
So
involves a Sharpie marker pen and most of the stuff or a Photoshop edit, doesn't it? That's their PR department.
um,
I'm making light of NASA's history of
yeah,
covering
right.
things up is all.
Bear with me. I have.
I think what you were pointing out that people are not aware. I think that becomes clear when you go into the street and start making questions to people. I think it's quite obvious that people don't have as wide of information about Mars as they could, right?
Yeah, I mean, so the question, you might be browsing your news feed on a daily basis, and you might come across an article about Mars, and it might talk to you about finding water, let's say, or possible biosignatures of ancient life and things of that nature. And that is really, NASA discovered water on Mars back in the 70s. So if you ever run across an article that's talking about water on Mars, us finding water on Mars, it's like, guys, this news is 50 years old by this point. You can't keep selling us the same thing over and over again. Now, a lot of that water takes the form of ice, but it's the same.
It's H2O,
Okay.
right?
And we can get into why that's important here in a minute. But if we have this never-ending question, is there life on Mars? And then of course there's the face on Mars. A lot of people heard about the face on Mars and like,
Sure,
okay.
sure.
And that's what people know. They know, well, we're looking for water, we're looking for ancient life, maybe microbes, and then there's the face. And that's basically all that people know. And we send these cute little rovers there, and that's basically all they know. As it turns out, there's a whole lot more. And I would argue, as it relates to UFO disclosure, I think Mars disclosure has a lot more tangible evidence to really demonstrate there is something to it. Like, there's a lot of reports with UFO disclosure. Okay, a lot of reporting. Mars actually has evidence, and evidence can take the form of a few different things. It can measurements, data published, or even photographs. I mean, this is scratching the surface here because there just ends up being so much to Mars, and to my surprise, there's very few people actually covering Mars because most people have just given up on it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm right there with you. I already see we're barely 8 minutes in, and I already see sort of correlations, between my work and yours, right? And what I mean by that is you mentioned the photographs of Mars, of the potential structures, of the pieces of large stone that look potentially, influenced by the hand of man. Well, when I was walking myself through finding these structures in North Alabama that are labeled as rock or outcropping or, whatever, even the geologists, when you dig into it, don't quite have answers for what you find, right? Through that process, Brian, I learned that I had to disengage from narrative completely, right? And I had to find a completely objective standpoint to where I could just look what's in front of me and then let that info, inform me, right? Disengage from a narrative. Oh, I started doing this, and then I look at this Gene Ward. I believe you've shared some of his stuff. Yeah, right? I caught him on an episode of a podcast, and I was in the chat, and I started getting the exact same feelings I got when I'm walking through the woods, barefoot, trying to listen to spirit in my eyeballs and finding this stuff here. I got the same vibe, and I even made a joke. I was like, let's see who can find Atlantis first, on Mars or before we find it here, because that's what it's kind of, you get the same vibe. I told myself this, when I'm looking at these rocks, I just learned to say rubble, right? So that I started seeing it that way. You know what I mean? And so when I look at these Mars pictures, so many of them, I see the same thing, some evidence of a high energy event that moved this massive stuff into its locations.
Yes, and thank you for bringing him up. It actually, you pronounce his name Jean, like Jean-Luc Picard.
Got it. Thank you.
He's in South Africa, but you have a guy like Jean Ward who, him and I have become quite close over the past few months, where he is essentially doing what, in my opinion, NASA should be doing. NASA takes the photographs of Mars, and all that they do is they just publish them to the internet without much in the way of commentary or analysis. Okay? Because if they find something strange, they don't really want to be in the game of trying to characterize it.
Right.
And fortunately, we have people like John Ward and others who, in their spare time, and we have to be very thankful for them to dedicating their life to doing this, in their spare time, they load up an image. And they're just going through it, like, section by section in a grid-like fashion, just looking for strange things. And it's interesting because Mars has so many strange things that while it is a time-consuming process, someone like Jean actually finds quite a bit. He's been doing this for a long time. He knows what he's looking for. Now, do I agree with all of his findings? No. I mean, there's some things I'm like, okay, I'm a little, less certain about that one. But there's some things that's like clear as day. And here's the thing. Jean will he's got a couple of he's a world-class independent researcher and graphic artist. He'll find stuff, and it is clear as day that it's not just a rock, okay? But because he's just a guy in South Africa that nobody's heard of, we don't, collectively, the public doesn't necessarily take someone like that seriously because they'll think, well, what does NASA have to say about this? And rarely NASA will have an explanation for some of these things. It'll be some version of a geological process that they'll invoke to try to explain something that we call into question. But otherwise, they're not in the game of really trying to characterize what it is that we're finding. So the question is why? Maybe they just don't want to open up that can of worms and have to deal with the public, leaving it to the independent researchers to kind of take the heat and the ridicule that accompanies making a claim like we found pyramids on Mars. That's heavy. I don't know when you guys first heard about pyramids on Mars. Like when I first heard about it, I had an unsettled feeling in my gut here, just because what does that mean? If we're sitting here on Earth trying to figure out where some of these pyramids came from, and like how old are they really? Right. Who built them? And now with the Giza ones, there's all this stuff underneath of it, right? And like, holy smokes. These aren't just tombs. Like, what are they? Energy factories? Like, there's that whole thing. Like, what the heck is going on here?
Consciousness elevation tech, perhaps?
We're discovering all sorts of things. But then if you take a look at what we've discovered on Mars, arguably, there do appear to be pyramids there. And I have a high threshold for what I will consider to be a pyramid. There's lots of things that are found, and I'm like, that just kind of looks like a mountain, kind of looks like it pyramidal. Right. But to actually say that looks like a pyramid, it's got to meet a high threshold for me. I want to see straight, equal sides. I want to see symmetry, and fortunately, we have enough of those now where it seems like, hey, there's something to that. Now, that's a long way from microbes. So to get people to pyramids on Mars, I really felt like in the film, we needed to start with what people know, which is water and microbes, and then get all the way to pyramids. And fortunately, we have people like Jean Ward and other researchers who are covering this stuff. And what I'm trying to do is elevate the work of people like Jean Ward.
Yes.
I come from a communications background, and I feel like I've got something to offer in that sense because I really feel like the rest of the world needs to know about this stuff.
Agreed. And as you tell me this about John Ward, and we'll say one more word about him, I see the fortuitousness of the planning and why I'm talking to you. Let me be honest and say this, Brian. When I told Ricardo that I wanted to speak with the guy about Mars, I couldn't remember his name. I was speaking about John Ward. Now, Ricardo took matters into his own hands and assumed I was talking about you and has you here. Now, as you so rightly point out, Jean Ward is way up here with these pyramids, and you are taking us to the beginning of microbial, and that's what I mean by I see the fortuitousness. This is beautiful. But lastly, to Jean Ward, yes, I bring him up because shout out to Mike and Dave's Multiverse, the podcast. I saw his
Yeah,
appearance on that. I was in the
yeah,
chat, and man, I had something to do, but I didn't. I popped on just to see what was up. And my plans went out the window because the chat was so much fun. I could see this guy was so engaged with his work. He was, as you say, an independent guy. That was made plain. And then I could see the hours, logged and how much he loved what he was doing, right?
yes,
And that struck me right off the bat. And so it stuck in my mind as we were looking for people to talk to. I wanted to highlight him.
yes.
And I'm so thankful and grateful that now I get to sit here and get to know your work first and talk about the microbial aspect.
Mm-hmm. We could do a little bit of a show and tell here in a little bit, but Jean
Sure.
Ward. Just one more thing about. Well, I have more comments about Jean. We can talk about him later,
Yeah,
but
whenever.
the what I'm trying to do now is build up my YouTube channel to be essentially the sequel, or rather the continuation of the series that started with the documentary. So the idea is
Nice.
you watch the documentary first, and then the YouTube channel fills in a lot more. It can do a deeper dive on just microbes or just water or just this or just that. And I am trying to do my best to find other researchers who don't know social media. They don't know public relations. And I'm like, okay, you do good work, but you clearly need help in trying to get this out to the world. I mean, even if you just take a look at the scientists who I've been involved with, they know how to publish a paper in a journal. But as far as getting it out to the public, that's a whole different thing. So I've met so many interesting and fascinating scientists along the way who have done amazing work that I'm sitting here thinking, how come nobody knows about this? Richard Hoover, John Brandenburg, microfossils, it's ridiculous. So
Right, Brian, be careful. You're betraying your character to us and to the world here. Well, I give you a lead in to talk about your work, and yet you harp back upon the work of others. I'm reminded that you corrected me when I called you a researcher. You said you were a communicator, and it turns out you're a communicator that likes to help others communicate. Bravo, mate. Bravo.
thank you. I'm sorry. I guess it's just it is not, the work is, maybe you feel this like Jason. You said you were doing a little bit of documentary filmmaking yourself. I grew up. I think it's fair to say that we all grew up in a world without social media. All right, and today there's this culture of me, right, online, and I never wanted this to be about me. That being said, I do realize that what helps when communicating a previously marginalized topic is being actually to put is actually putting a face to the field of research or the area of interest. Look, I was sitting around here thinking, like, I don't want to be the guy to do this. Put together a feature-length documentary. I've only done short films. Certainly, there's got to be somebody must do something about this. And I had this internal monologue. Okay, fine. I'm going to be the guy who did it. I got sucked into it, and here we are today. What I realized, though, is that the Mars community has been marginalized primarily because, now, I think a lot of people may remember Richard Hoagland.
Yes.
Okay, Richard Hoagland was essentially doing what I'm doing now 20, 30, 40 years ago. He's
I
what
would
I
say
call...
without the scientific component that you added to it.
He
Had a lot of
actually...
mathematics and geometry, but I don't think he went as deep as you did talking to these people, getting to the evidence, especially on the microbial side of things, on the ancient ocean, the topography of the planet. I think you went much deeper. It's not much deeper. You complemented very well what he did and gave us a perspective of a world in his whole, instead of being focused in this or that area and speaking about this or that structure. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. And I guess for context, Jason, maybe you don't know, but
Yes, thank you.
when NASA started sending stuff to Mars, started taking pictures, started getting these measurements, okay, from the Viking mission, a lot of strange stuff was coming back, and that this is when the face on Mars came out. Okay, so someone at NASA, a NASA
So
employee,
like 70s, right?
yeah, someone at NASA was just looking at a printed out image, I think through a magnifying glass, because that's what they had to do back then.
Yeah.
And he said, "Hey, that looks like a face." And to get ahead of the story, NASA released this photo and said, "Hey, look, there's something on Mars that looks like a face, but don't worry, it's not really a face because when the sun changed positions, we took a photo of it later, and all the facial features went away." Which did not happen. Yeah. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you.
As it turns out, they took additional photographs of the face during different hours of the day, and it still had these facial qualities. So thus begun the the question of whether or not NASA's covering stuff up. And immediately, now back then in the 70s, there was a science journalist by the name of Richard Hoagland, who I would consider to be the Nick Fury of the Mars cinematic universe. Okay. He sought out scientists and put together a Mars independent investigative team. And he sought out a lot of the people who I ended up connecting with many years later. So he was doing what I am doing now, just many years ago, getting the experts to actually take a look at NASA's data, because NASA isn't being so forthcoming with what they're actually discovering. So we're taking a look at these photos of what appear to be structures on Mars. We're, and the life test experiments, and he got everybody from a gentleman by the name of Randy Pozos, who's an anthropologist, to John Brandenburg, a plasma physicist, to Mark Carlotto, who's a graphics image specialist, to try to get to the bottom of this. And he actually was a really good communicator. He went and gave a presentation to the UN, and he's quite articulate. He's getting up there in age now, and I actually tried to get him in the documentary, but wasn't able to work it out. But he wanted to a lot of these interesting discoveries that NASA was making. He wrote a book, and a few other people wrote books too. Now, I've had the benefit of the past 40 years of research. And back then, this was all coming in real time, and they were just trying to do the best that they had given the limited amount of data. But since then, we have better orbiter photographs because we've sent more missions there. We have, just a lot more information about Mars now than we used to. So I've been able to build on the back of Richard Hoagland and these other guys. But the question about Mars artificiality only became stranger and stranger and more compelling as the years went on. And now we have thousands of photos being taken and released online, and a variety of people all over the world, John Ward being one of them, looks at these photos and find stuff. And there's I'm in touch with a half dozen guys. Some concentrate on rover images, some concentrate on orbiter photographs, and I'm doing my best to try to help them elevate their material. I'm actually literally rebranding them and helping set up their social media accounts, because if you look at the UFO community, or maybe even the what would you call it, the Cosmic Summit community, the Younger Dryas, ancient megalithic stuff here on Earth.
Alt history, I think, is what the mainstream term for that.
Sure,
for us.
There's a huge community for that, and there's no shortage of people working on those issues.
Right.
But Mars doesn't have that tight knit, unified community. So that's what I'm trying to do, because
what's that, Cahokia? What are you showing us? That's Cahokia, right? That's a map.
This is the D&M pyramid, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's Mars. My mistake.
Right. So this is one of the things that they originally found in the 70s, which we're kind of seeing at a side angle here, but it was so odd because this appears to be a five-sided pyramid, which is just so weird that it's five-sided, and it's right near the face. You know, I have other images, Ricardo, if you want me to
Sure,
pull some up.
absolutely.
So as you do that, I'll just thank you, Brian, for the education on who Hoagland was. I had no idea, and what I take from that is he's basically the OG of studying these photographs on Mars and getting us where we are today. And it also sounds like he's a bit of an inspiration for you as well in sort of his team building and rising up others' capacities.
Yeah, and that's what he wanted to do is really elevate the work of other people and call attention to these anomalies on Mars because somebody had to, and NASA wasn't doing it.
Amen.
And he was at the right place at the right time because he was working very tightly with NASA as a scientific reporter, and he started seeing that these things were not treated with the respect that they deserved. He's starting to see these awesome images of what could be in there, and the scientist was just next. Oh,
Yeah.
it's just shadow and light and so on.
We'd be remiss not to note that that is a theme,
But
a recurring theme here. Go ahead, Ricardo.
But you'll be happy to know that we at the Institute have the full repository of Richard Hoagland work from every single film he made, every single book he wrote,
Awesome.
his personal presentations. We have everything.
I am very happy to know that. That's
So-
awesome.
Let me show you just a different shot of that structure that you just brought up, Ricardo.
And then if you have the images after you show us this, so you can go and prepare in advance if you have them. I'm very curious to know what's your opinion from how do we go from the first face image that I showed when you were talking about it,
Yeah.
and to the current face that they show us now.
Sure.
Because it's just the difference are so big that either it was utterly destroyed or I don't know how to judge it. But carry on with the
Okay.
DNM, please.
As you launch in, just let me say before this point loses our mind how touched and sort of, honored I am. Each episode we sit here, Brian, I have each person tell me the same thing. We asked Jeff up north this past weekend. He's just a dude who got into copper in Michigan, and so he's putting info out. And I said, why? And he said, well, I couldn't find any info. The people that should be putting the info out weren't putting the info out. So I figured I'd just go out and start making videos and put some info out.
Right.
And it's just such an honor to be meeting people who that's their driving force, man.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Okay, let's bring that over here. I've got some updated images of the face that I'll share here in a second. What we see here is one of the original anomalies that they discovered in the 70s. Now, this is clearly an updated photo because it's much more higher resolution. But if we actually here, okay, if I can lay over symmetry, here we go. This is a better one.
And this is not isolated. It's important to notice that this is included on a pattern of sacred geometry in a whole plane that they call Sidonia, if I'm not mistaken, Brian, you correct me, where you could see that this is not a nice, just one thing in the middle of nowhere.
Sure.
It's included in a
It's a complex.
Yes.
Okay, this sums it up quite nicely here.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, what you have are repeated expressions of geometry. Now, I don't have the measurements up on the screen, but down here, okay, in the middle, you have a 90-degree angle. This center is a 90-degree angle. We have two 30-degree angles here and two 60-degree angles here. This top triangle is actually flat and not considered part of the structure. That's at ground level. But if you draw a line right through it, now, you might think, okay, well, this thing doesn't look perfect. It's a little wonky on one side. And so, what I'll remind people of is that the surface of Mars is millions, perhaps even billions of years old, what would our Sphinx look like in another 100,000 years?
I was about to say we have pyramids in much worse state than that one is.
Correct. Pyramids that we know were built only, well,
I
after the Great Pyramids, and they
but
look like that today.
I personally, although this can be contradicted by the straight alignment between the most north slope and the triangle that you say it's at the ground level, I always thought that that triangle was caused by some kind of a landslide from the pyramid, because it's right in front of it.
Ricardo, we
But the
losing you?
alignment might contradict me because it's perfect, right? So it's it's dubious to say that it might be a landslide. It could be part of the structure because of the alignment.
Okay, so this thing here is 12 miles away from the face. It's in the same what the
It's
region they
right
call
there.
Cydonia. All right. Now it's also, you guys probably know the significance of alignments. This thing and the face are both aligned in the same direction.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you might take a look at this and be like, that's a little funny. I don't really know if I buy this. Five-sided pyramid, that's a little strange. Oh, by the way, this thing from top to bottom is 3.5 miles long. That's huge. And I would also ask you to consider what geological process would make something like that.
Thank you. That's the thing, man. When I'm in my research, dude, look, I look at what's in front of me now and I'm reminded of LIDAR images. I use the free LIDAR images here in the Southeast, right? And I find these anomalies and then I go out on foot, right? I spend naturally tons of time in the outdoors. I know what terrain, I know what a hill is, you understand? I just know what the rocks in front of me, how they form. So when I go from that LIDAR to the ground, that's how I've learned to find these antediluvian, which, you could say you're pointing out to us here, is by using this LIDAR and going, no, I cannot see a geologic process in my head that put this on this map. And then I go stand there, and it's a giant pile of huge chunks of quartz rock, and they're almost pyramidal form. And I go, you cannot explain to me how in a flat terrain, this pile of giant quartz and rocks ended up here and has some pine trees on top of it today, and you're calling it a hill.
Right.
So it just can't.
I'm glad you brought up LIDAR because I want to circle back around that in a minute when we're doing a different comparison. Now, before I show you some other structures, let's take a sidebar to the face, and let me show you an updated picture of the face. Now, I have this in Photoshop, with these blue lines. Now, okay, when you look at a higher resolution image of this thing that they call the face, by the way, the name The Face came from NASA. It's not some random people out there, some kooks, okay? We got this name from NASA. So don't blame us, people, that we're using the name The Face, because that's what they called it. Anyway.
This angle looks much more reptilian if we're trying to find a face in the image, that's for sure.
If you want to say, okay, look, here looks like an eye socket, here looks like an eye socket, maybe there's a mouth, maybe this is kind of a nose. Here's what people need to understand about this structure that they have not yet been told.
Let's go.
It's not, if you want to look at this and judge it on the qualities of it being a face, that's one type of analysis. That's a qualitative analysis. You're characterizing this as a face. Okay.
Yeah, that's just something fun to do while I'm looking at it. Let my third eye ramp, like you're looking at a piece of art. That's all that is, right?
Okay. There's a different way of analyzing this, and this is where I have to credit Dr. Mark Carlotto, who is a satellite imaging specialist. He knows how to look at satellite images. He's actually developed software for use in satellite images that tells the difference between a tank and a tree. Like, how much different is this object from the surrounding landscape? It's called fractal analysis, okay?
Right.
And when he ran this software on this area of Mars called Cydonia, it highlighted the face as being distinctly odd, distinctly different enough from the surrounding landscape that it's like even the computer thinks that it doesn't match the rest of the landscape. Okay, so that is one quantitative analysis, okay? Now, independent of the face structure itself, sorry, I get excited when I talk about Mars.
It's great, man. Yeah, you've got me excited.
Where and this research that I'm about to explain was published over 20 years ago. And most people hadn't heard of it because, once we have NASA saying there's nothing to the face, that's what people remember, and that's the story that we got stuck with. And so when Mark Carlotta comes out with a research paper showing additional points of quantitative analysis, which I'll show you right now, most people don't hear that. So we've got published research on this, which, if you want to dig into the details, you can. But here it is in a nutshell. If you take a look at what you might consider the face region of this intersection here.
Can you give me an understanding of the dimensions I'm looking at as you continue?
Yeah, this thing's about a mile long.
Thank you.
Top to bottom, okay? So when you take a look at this intersection here, which is arguably what you'd consider the face, and the outer section, which is, I'll just refer to it as the frame, okay, what we notice is... Did it stop sharing? Here we go. Okay. What we notice is... okay, so
incredible symmetry. Yeah.
If I take off these blue lines, there we go. We have repeated expressions of 3, 4, 5 right triangles, the smaller of which identify the area that we call the face, the interior, the larger of which identify the border of the exterior of the frame of the face. So we have repeated expressions of 3, 4, 5 right triangles that identify its structure here. And these little red dots are highlights. There's actually, I'm sorry, let me just try to put these side by side for just a moment.
So it kind of looked like you're showing me a pyramid that had melted below or crumbled below itself, right? I mean, that's that overlay. When I look at the main outside 4 sides, it's triangular from above. I mean, it's pyramidal, excuse me.
Well, I see the what they call the frame is like the platform, and then the geoglyph of the face is made on top of it, whatever the face is, right?
Well, my large triangles, right? One at top that's 1, 2, 3, 4 sided. Anyway, go ahead.
The triangles are there just for symmetry, right, Ryan? They are not saying that the structure is growing as a triangle.
Right. It is just as a topographical overlay. You do see the interior of this structure, what I'm referring to as the face part of the structure.
Yes.
Its area identified by these smaller 3, 4, 5 right triangles, the Pythagorean triangle. Yes. That indicates a matter that would seem to indicate a matter of intelligent design, because again, this thing's a mile long. What are the odds that this thing has 3, 4, 5 right triangles identifying its interior and exterior? Let me look how precise it is along the top and side of the frame of the face. And so these red dots also highlight. There are these lines. Sorry, there are these circles, like 1, 2, 3. Now they're not exactly centered. They're sort of a little bit skewed here and there. Now again, if we're also taking a look at, well, why isn't it a perfect looking face? Okay, I would argue, what would happen with the Sphinx after 100,000 years or 1,000,000 years? It wouldn't look. I mean, it's damaged right now, like after weathering and erosion. Just one second, yes.
And it was repaired many times over through the ages. So.
Right. Now, I don't spend. Now, okay, I'm going to tease something. I've got a whole video that I'm going to release on my YouTube channel about the face specifically. And since I came out with the film and presented this work of Dr. Mark Carlotta, I've learned even more things about the face. So there's additional information. I'm not prepared to talk about it today, but I've got more coming on the face. It's such an odd structure because people get so fired up about it because, why would there be a face on the planet looking straight up at us? I mean, it raises too many questions. So, there, in my opinion...
Well, whatever master builder race lived there and had to flee and come here and is now us, they wanted to put a giant reminder so when we eventually could look back there from here, we would see, oh shit, we were once there too, but that's just off the top.
Along that line of thinking, Jason, Richard Hoagland, in his book, The Monuments of Mars, one of the more notable parts that stuck out in my brain was this face. Like, why is it there? And he speculated that it's to tell us where to land. Because in this Cydonia region, there's a lot of other odd stuff.
Yes.
All right, so that's the face. We have these repeated expressions of geometry, the 3, 4, 5 right triangles, the D&M pyramid with the 30, 60, 90 repeated expressions of geometry inside, 12 miles away from one another, both oriented in the same direction. What are the odds that Mother Nature does these two very strange things in close proximity, both oriented in the same direction? It's just a little strange. Now, this is where the story starts. In the 70s. This is what we got in the 70s. And since then, we've got 50 years of new images. And so, but people want to go back and they want to look at that old face on Mars photo, and it's a little haunting, it's a little spooky, but that's where they don't know that there's been a whole lot discovered since then.
Sure.
Thanks to people like Jean Ward and others. So,
but in your opinion, how do we get to how do we go from the first Viking image that I showed when you were talking about it to this? Because although the resolution was much smaller in the Viking image, the first one, how did we get from a perfect face to a face that we can recognize the features, the geometry, the symmetry, but we can no longer recognize the features that we saw in the first Viking image?
Well, you just got to think, like, higher resolution stuff's going to just pick out all the details. It's like when we went from standard definition to high definition, news anchors suddenly had to start wearing a lot more makeup because we're just seeing a lot more detail in their face.
Right.
So,
and you had more of a light and shadow effect, I would imagine too, right? With the
and it was
video.
higher contrast, and the way the sun was, it wasn't giving us even lighting on there.
Right.
So it's just boiling it down. It's distilling it down to its most essential elements. All right. So that's where the story starts. If we take a look at let's Jason, do you recall seeing Jean Ward's best pyramid discovery?
No, I don't specifically recall that.
Okay. We are going to take a look at that right now.
Great.
Pyramid of the Moon. Yeah. Okay. This to me is even stronger evidence. Okay, so let me just bring this one up here too. You guys should know Teotihuacan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to show us the Inca city? What they call the Inca
They
city?
got Pyramid of the Sun and Pyramid of the Moon down there.
Yeah.
Okay? This is the Pyramid of the Moon down there in Mexico. Teotihuacan, okay? My question is, what do you think that would look like if there were, let's say, 500,000 years of sediment deposited on top of it?
A hill. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, of course. It would crumble. It would look like a hill. It would have some sort of tree on top of it. One of the identifying markers I learned to identify this stuff on the ground here on Earth, Brian, was when you're in a deciduous forest and all of a sudden the hill in front of you only has young pine trees on it. Right? Well, what that told me was the only reason there's small pine trees there is because they can't get large tap roots. They keep falling over. That's because it's all rock with a very thin layer of topsoil on top of it.
Okay. So you guys know what an unexcavated pyramid looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that it more or less just looks like a hill. You see those telltale signs, young trees, things of that nature. Now, the conditions of Mars are a lot different than Earth, okay? The atmosphere is less than 1% as dense as Earth's, okay? And which means even though there's wind, it's not very strong, okay? And there's no trees growing. There's no plant life growing all over the place. So there's not a lot of activity aside from just wind and dust, right? So if you take that into account, well, sediment deposition would probably happen at a much slower rate.
Right.
It wouldn't be as much as on Earth because there's not, it's more dusty than it is soil, and
Right.
There's no plant life trying to take over. All right.
Right.
But if you imagine that.
It's a powdery desert.
Sure.
That's a picture you're painting for me.
And well, I guess let me say, what would this look like? Not after 500,000 years, but maybe even just 100 or 200 years. You would start to see it taken over by nature, but you could still see some outline of the pyramidal structure itself. You would still see sides to it, okay? Until it got so much on top of it that it just looked like a rounded hill. All right. So, Jean Ward in South Africa found something that looks, in my opinion, just like it.
Really does, man. From angles and oh look, and the top right hand corner, what is that? About your 2 o'clock, you can almost see where the flow of dust or debris is. It almost looks, you see this, Ricardo? Like liquid flowing, like magma.
Yeah.
And then the rocks strewn off in one direction. Oh, look at that.
It even has this little part in the front here. I don't know what you call it.
The little
steps.
At portico, I don't know. It's front porch.
Yeah.
But yes, I see it distinctly.
Now, what's the scale here? Someone might ask. And this thing here, from one side to another, is 2.5 miles long.
Wow.
What are the odds? I mean, it is. I think it is safe to say that this thing has sides to it.
Yes.
It is clear as day. We see lines. We see sides. Now,
it stands out. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Let me interrupt.
It is not conical like a volcano. If you look at a volcano top down, it doesn't have sides.
No.
Flat on top.
A volcano would not grow as this.
So I'm intrigued by the. All right. So when I look around, I guess what we're calling the edge, and I see flat plain, basically in all directions, outside of a few distant mounds or whatever. All right. To explain this to me geologically, look, and then the only debris on the picture is in the top right-hand corner, meaning that mass of stuff I see scattered most likely came from this mound or pyramid in front of me. Some force moved it in one direction. Yeah, I mean, you see what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to break down how I would find this to have happened naturally, and I don't see it, right? You can't explain this to me with geologic forces.
You have to think in terms of scale, because if this structure, you said what, 3 miles?
2.5.
2.5 miles, those little boulders next to it are absolutely gigantic. So
right.
They look small on the image, but they are enormous. What I would be curious to see is a zoom out of this and see if there is any other feature in the area that could be recognized as this is a typical geology of the place, which I doubt, which I seriously doubt that that's the case.
I can do that if you give me a minute.
Sure.
Yeah, take your time. I just like analyzing this. Ricardo, if this was LIDAR here on Earth, you know what I mean?
It is a pyramid. It is a pyramid.
Right.
It isn't. They only don't consider it a pyramid because it's
okay. Before I do that, though, let me just, because you just mentioned LIDAR, I wanna examine this question here because, in my opinion, LIDAR. All right, just a moment. I'm finding something here. We identify pyramids here on Earth using LIDAR, don't we?
Yes.
I identified blown up pyramids here on Earth using LIDAR.
All right. I'll show the surrounding landscape in just a minute, but for now.
Sure.
Damn it, I'm losing my windows here.
You only have 27 open, so.
All right, share. Here is a LIDAR image of what is Belize. Some might refer to this as the White City. This is a little outside of my area of expertise. Okay, but if we zoom in here, we can clearly see that there are some geometric forms here.
Yep.
All right. Now, what might this thing appear to be right here?
So it certainly seems structured. You do have a border around it, almost like a wall or an outside. I can see a square, and then inside of it, slightly more of a circle. So it is reminiscent of the circle and the square earth features that they found all over the Amazon using LIDAR. And then, of course, man, there's several blocked features, and even in the very center, all the way to the left at 9 o'clock, you have what looks like the pyramids you've been showing me on Mars.
So if we here on Earth are looking at LIDAR images, which are obviously, or rather, arguably of lower resolution than a 100 megapixel camera from an orbiter around Mars, showing us something with far greater detail. Let's see if I can share both of these at the same time.
Running headlong into our constant enemy here on this show, and it is narrative blindness. You look at evidence that, as you point out, if your narrative allowed you to see a pyramid, if you were looking at Earth LIDAR, you would identify a pyramid. You would be like me in your boots or whatever, out in the woods hiking to this thing because you found a pyramid. What keeps me from seeing the same thing when you tell me that image is from Mars? Narrative blindness.
Can I say with 100% certainty that what we're seeing on Mars is a pyramid? No, of course not. All I'm saying is that shouldn't something like this warrant a closer look? How can you so easily, NASA, dismiss that this isn't exactly what it looks like? So this is what John Ward discovered. NASA took the photo, but they don't talk about it. They just throw it out there, leave it to some guy in South Africa to find, and he did. And I'm saying if we identify this structure here on the right as being a non-natural structure, most likely some type of pyramidal structure with LIDAR, why can we not also extend the same level of curiosity?
Same courtesy and curiosity.
Yes,
Excellent.
exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so that's that. Let me see if I can. I'm interested to know what you guys think with regard to the surrounding.
Yes.
What I was saying, I was muted
area.
and I couldn't say. It's that what I keep saying in this is reasonable doubt. There is reasonable doubt for it to be studied further and either accepted or dismissed. It's just there is no reason for it to be ignored unless it doesn't. It's not important for the narrative that it's being transmitted, and we've seen this even with academics when they present a paper to be peer reviewed and what they show doesn't fit the narrative, they just reject it because it's not in their interest. And Mars has no life. Mars is a planet that is a desolate thing, so they can't have pyramids. So it's completely removed from the beginning. It doesn't matter what is found. There is nothing, there is never anything on Mars.
They dismiss it because it doesn't provide answers, Ricardo. These people like to provide answers. NASA, the reason they're not analyzing these pictures is because there are no answers in these pictures. There are lots of questions.
Yeah, but
and
NASA has the chance and the power to actually solve these questions because they keep sending probes, they keep sending rovers. They could go and see exactly what is there. Am I wrong, Brian?
As a
Yeah,
non-American,
right.
Ricardo, I will allow you the courtesy of not understanding that NASA is, in fact, basically a spy agency. Their number one concern is not disclosure, it is not truth, and it's really not even Mars, though they already know what's going on. My personal opinion, but that's why, you're hearing the new Space Force, which is coming to Alabama. They're doing away with NASA. Everybody knows what NASA really was, and it's going away.
Huh.
Yeah.
I do want to be fair. NASA has given us so much. They've sent these probes out into the solar system that have helped us understand our universe a lot better. It has given us so much information. It's just they don't really want to pay attention to the juicy stuff that they find. They want to keep things in the safe zone.
Sure. I wasn't speaking against, as always, any scientist or individual part of any program, right?
Right.
But once you get captured by federal and national interest and you become an entity of that institution, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Not obviously these pictures of theirs we're
Sure.
so grateful for.
Sure. So here's that surrounding. Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
Here, can you guys see the pyramid that John Ward found?
I see what you're doing. I do see it. I do see it.
Yes, to the left bottom of the screen.
Right.
Yep.
Right here.
Yep.
So he's just sitting
Wow.
here going through image after image, and like this is what he finds. Now there's all this other stuff around here. Now I'm not getting excited over this stuff, but because this arguably looks a little bit more natural. It's more rugged. It's less precise. It doesn't have symmetry. It doesn't have geometry to it.
I'm excited about it, dude, because if this were South America and you were showing me this right now, I would tell you, anyone would tell you you are looking at a complex because of the flat terrain and these nodules, no matter how big they are, rising up out of this flat terrain. There is no geologic explanation. If this were on Earth, we would be sending an expedition because we found another mounded complex.
Brian, do you know that if this apparently random hills that are to the right of the pyramid, they seem all to be pointing in one direction? That's the only thing I can say about it. Has that been seen where they point at, or it hasn't been done?
That's a good question. Maybe there's something to it. I guess if I were to go back to this LIDAR image just one more time, that I'm going to put up these side by side, entire screen. Okay. So what we have here in this LIDAR image is we have these obviously square structures, but we also have hills and such that are around it. I don't know how big these things are. Maybe they're hills, maybe they're mountains, maybe they're plateaus, whatever, mesas, whatever. But is that not what we have here, too? We have something that is obviously square next to a bunch of natural landforms. So again, we have precedent for this on Earth.
Yeah, but hold that back. There's something else you didn't point out that really jumps out. I see what you're doing with saying there's hills all around, but let's look here. All right, so on the Earth image, look how flat the terrain is directly around the structures, okay?
Yeah.
Now, as soon as I go out from the structures into what you say are natural terrain, look at what happens with the terrain. This is how I use LIDAR here. I can see this terrain, right? That is natural terrain. I can see flow of water, wind, effects, right? All present. When I look at this Mars image, I see what I see in the plaza of that town. It is flat. I don't see representations of any geologic forces other than these mounds in front of me.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, man. That's excellent putting those next to each other.
This is an odd structure, but I really try to focus my work on something that is okay. Carl Sagan. What's Carl Sagan's famous quote? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. You guys have heard that before, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To which I would respond with another quote from Carl Sagan when discussing the possibility of discovering intelligent life on a different planet. Let's just say we had an alien visitor come to Earth. How would they know there's intelligent life down here on Earth? First, what he says is this, and he said this in Cosmos, in his book and in the TV series. Intelligent life first reveals itself through the geometric regularity of its constructions. So we have geometric regularity. Something over what are the odds that something over 2.5 miles wide would be so symmetrical, be so, arguably, it has sides.
Coincidence takes planning is the fun way to say that.
This is an odd thing. I don't know what this is, but it's just a bunch of odd stuff. This looks odd too. You seem to have a crater, but with like an
interior crater.
But I'm not going to spend much time on these things. They're
a lot of fun though, dude. And you're right. If you need to move on, because I'll stay here all day with you looking at this stuff.
So what you and everybody else needs to understand is that, again, this is one of dozens. We could spend all day looking at things. I'm just showing you the quick highlights. I'm saying there are more structures that are like this. This just so happens to be one of the better photographed ones. So,
Cat's loud, Ricardo.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I just question why we can't take this idea of artificiality on Mars a little bit more seriously, given the photographic evidence that NASA has collected thus far.
Great. Yeah. Great.
You guys remember you guys, okay. I put out a video recently on the square on Mars. Did you guys see the square on Mars?
So what you're doing now is you've already sold me on your work. So this afternoon, after I take a road trip, I'll be watching all of this evening. So give me the teasers, man.
I did a full length interview with John Ward on the YouTube channel Jason, where I go over my essentially top 10 of John Ward's discoveries as of last year. I'm going to do another one with him soon because he's found even more
Great.
stuff since.
Great.
I try to highlight some of the best work out there. He's looking at rover photographs, he's looking at orbiter photographs, and he's coming up with so many good things. And I think what Mars really needs is just an elevation in the communication as it relates to the public.
It's such exciting stuff, and I'm glad you told us about that. And I hope when that is together that you do also let us help put it out for you here at the Institute and promote it. Because not only is this stuff so fun, man, but the questions and the obvious nature, when you can just for a second start pretending you're looking at Earth images instead of Mars images, I think the popular appeal, if you could just get it, like you say, communicate it out to the people, I don't see why, people wouldn't be just as excited and have just as much fun with it, if nothing else, as we are. Let alone all the beautiful implications and ramifications that could tell us about ourselves and potentially, how powerful and what our real history is, But at its heart, man, I think the hook is just how fun it is and how it sparks your curiosity, and your imagination.
We spent a lot of time talking about pyramids, and I think one of the other important things to know for people is that this question about life on Mars currently, NASA had a press conference a few months ago where they made a big deal about finding what they called a potential biosignature of ancient life.
Yes. Ricardo and I were, yes. I remember that echo. I faintly is in my, awareness.
Right. And in my opinion, it was such a nothing burger relative to the other stuff that they have already discovered. So in 1976, we answered this in 1976. Arguably, we did.
Wow.
Okay, NASA did send life detection experiments to Mars in the 70s aboard the Viking mission. And that is the only time they did it. They sent 3 biological experiments to Mars aboard the Viking landers in 1976.
Yeah.
All 3 of them came back with positive results indicating, scientists are so funny with how they word things. Autotrophic microbial respiration, which basically means they found microbes on Mars in 1976. Now,
wow.
You would think they'd break open the champagne and say, hey, we found life on Mars. The problem is they had a different experiment, which was an organic matter test. It was to test the soil for organic matter. And in 1976, that experiment did not find any organic matter in the soil. So the question then was, how do you have life without any organic matter? Now, as it turns out, long story short, that test that was testing for organic matter simply wasn't good enough back then. The tech wasn't there. Decades later, the Curiosity rover, guess what? It found the organic matter. So had they found the organic matter back in 1976, they would not have said our test results are inconclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So we heard test results inconclusive, and that's been the story ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even since the 70s, NASA has, through the use of spectroscopy, found chlorophyll. Spectroscopy is when you shine a laser at something, and it reflects back a certain wavelength, and you are able to tell what it consists of, the material it consists of. Okay, now this is spectroscopy. It's not like we went up there and found plants, but it's like it's a very well regarded way of experimenting to see what that material consists of. So they found that. They didn't make a big deal about that. Photographic evidence also indicates that there is this black coating that grows on Mars called, well, you'll see it here on Earth. In the desert, you'll see this black coating on rocks. It's called desert varnish or rock varnish. It kind of looks like this black varnish on top of rocks.
Okay.
Microbes make that over centuries of time. It's this film. And what you'll find is sometimes, you guys know petroglyphs, right? Where you'll see things carved in. If you have a rock with a black coating, sometimes they'll scrape off that black coating and make a petroglyph out of it. Okay,
yeah.
Right? That's rock varnish. That was produced by microbes. And guess what? We see that on Mars, on these rocks. Wow. NASA and their team have been publishing papers trying to find a non-biological explanation for this rock varnish. And so far, the best they got is a yet undetermined mechanism is producing this rock varnish on Mars. Guys, it's biology. I don't know what, you know.
So we know a determined mechanism that causes it just fine, but because our stories don't bend that way and allow us to say it, we're going to go with an undefined mechanism.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
And then when the Curiosity rover found that organic material about 10 years ago in the soil of Mars, it also found a very particular organic substance known as dimethyl sulfide. Dimethyl sulfide is only produced by microbes.
Okay.
Dimethyl sulfide.
I think that closes the question, right? So
You will find this even on NASA's website. You will find dimethyl sulfide is known to us as only being produced by microbes. So why are we not making a big deal about that? Maybe in your newsfeed you'll see this. You know the James Webb Space Telescope?
Yes.
Okay, and occasionally you might see a news article saying scientists have found life in the atmosphere of an exoplanet a few light years away. What they're looking for is dimethyl sulfide. And when they detect it in the atmosphere of a planet light years away, they say, hey, we think we found life.
Same shit we found on Mars, right? Shut up.
It's on Mars. So you tell me how it got there. Now, this isn't sexy stuff, but I think the take-home is arguably NASA has discovered microbial life on Mars multiple times at this point.
Okay, so I'm curious now. What is your take on why it is that we can admit when we find it on a planet far enough away, but we don't think it'll ever matter, we can say we found it, but when it's on the planet next door, we have to deny it. What do you think that is? What is that impulse? Why it's
and that's what that we are left to speculate. In my opinion, it opens up a whole can of worms because Mars is essentially a murdered planet. The question is, what the hell happened to it? It used to be like Earth, but it's not anymore. And if you go down that rabbit hole, which is what I did in the film, it gets into some terrifying issues. How did it lose its atmosphere? What NASA says, their explanation, unfortunately, it doesn't add up when you do the numbers. They'll say the solar wind has been stripping away the atmosphere over a period of many millions or billions of years. The solar wind isn't stripping it away fast enough to account for the nearly complete loss that you'll see today. There's something else that stripped away the atmosphere. And in the film, we present two different areas of study. You guys know Robert Schoch, right?
Indeed, yes.
Okay. Robert Schoch is in the film talking about one of these hypotheses. He's doing a lot. You guys probably know he's he did some work and he does work all over the place.
The Sphinx, right? The erosion, the dating the Sphinx based on the erosion. He weighed in on that. I see recently that he and his wife are putting out children's books on these ancient topics. So yeah, he's been doing a lot on these areas for a long time.
He has, with regard to the Younger Dryas, he has a hypothesis. There. Do you guys know about that?
He does. He differs from a lot of us that side with the comet impact hypothesis, and I believe his is more solar in origin. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, and he has some things to say about Mars in that respect.
I see. Look, where my brain goes instantly, total speculation along with you, right? Is because I'm involved in looking for what we call Atlantis, but the lost civilization here on Earth more precisely. Okay, just as we have our stories of the former time of Atlantis here on Earth, if I were to bet, and I don't have any money, so I might as well, right? I would bet that for the lost civilization, their origin stories could very well have been Mars. Mars was their Atlantis, as it were. That's just how my mind quickly puts together the picture you're starting to paint for me here.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
by the way, you mentioned Atlantis. Do you guys know Michael Donnellan?
Yes.
Have you met him, Ricardo?
No, I haven't. I haven't had the pleasure to meet him.
Have you seen his documentaries?
A few of them, yes. I don't believe I see them all, but he
Okay.
presents a very compelling tale of how things went. But I have a thought in my mind of what you're speaking, and sorry, I'm going to cut this. Is that in my research, I have to compare both the cosmic impact with Robert Schoch theory, because I think they are both right.
You think both played a part?
Because we see that huge objects, when they come too closer to the sun, they cause a reaction from the sun, that it's usually a direct ejection
Solar
of
event.
material, right?
It just happened, right? We just saw the auroras last night with 3I Atlas around the sun.
No, I mean is when a comet, especially a big one, gets too close to the sun,
Sure.
the sun reacts to it, and
Yes.
there is a blast directed to it. And what I
Right,
think
which
happened here-
3I absorbed just last week, yeah.
what I think happened here, it relates to the Younger Dryas, is you have this huge comet. It got close to the sun. The sun had not a CME, not a coronal mass ejection, but a rarer thing. There is this SME, a surface mass ejection, that not
Okay.
all people that study the sun agree with it. So when that happens, you have this ejection of the sun's surface that blasts this huge comet into smaller pieces that are still, some of them are still huge, right? And
Yeah.
they are roaming around the solar system. Some of them, so you have this heat mass that glances the Earth and starts the process of the dryas. And then you have the impacts, multiple of them, with big things and smaller things. Some of them cause just airbursts, others reach actually and
Ice caps and
and
whatnot.
hit the ground, and they keep circling. That's why you see impacts 9.6 thousand years ago, then you see 6,000 years ago, then you see 4,000 years ago, then you see 1600 years ago.
Still passing through the same Taurid meteor stream that was that comet fragment.
And,
yeah.
and that Taurid meteor stream, if you go 100 years, the reports are 10 times the shooting stars in the sky per hour that we have now.
Yeah, it's growing.
Or 100 times as you go back in time. It keeps increasing. So we are clearing still that massive debris that was taken out.
Correct.
Was that destroyed Mars? I don't know, because you tell me, Brian. I think that in the case of Mars, and you have Phobos and Deimos as the satellites of Mars, I think it's easier to explain what happens to Mars because it's so huge with the destruction of what the Greeks called the planet Phaeton. Because the asteroid belt that is between Mars and Jupiter, if we put it back together, although most astronomers and astrophysicists say, oh, if you put it all back together, it is too small to cause such a catastrophe. Well, they are not accounting to all the material that was dispersed and also cause impacts all over the solar system. So, and you cannot explain Mount Olympus in Mars by pure volcanic activity. Is too enormous. And you go to the other side of the planet and you have a huge impact right on the opposite side of Olympus Mars, which might have caused the magma to erupt on the other side of the planet and cause not only where Olympus Mars is settled, but a huge plateau as the volcano itself. It's 2 times Himalaya, Ryan, I think. So it's enormous compared to the scale of the planet. I don't know what are your opinions on this, and I'm sorry if I put too much on the table. But
No, that's okay. So Mars has craters all over the place.
yeah,
Okay, it's been bombarded by craters, meteor impacts rather, but that's not all. It also has signature scarring of what Robert Schoch talks about, plasma or electrical discharge. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I've seen
Okay.
it. Yes, I've seen him talk about that. You're right.
And,
Thank you.
and
Go ahead.
these signature scars are reproducible in the laboratory,
I've seen
Okay.
them doing it. Yeah.
and they produce a variety of different types of scars. One very simple one is hexagonal craters.
Okay.
Meteor impacts do not make hexagons. And I'm not saying it looks like a hexagon. I'm saying it's a hexagon.
It's a hexagon.
And there is no surrounding debris field because it just sucks it straight up and sends it so far out it doesn't go out like this. And there are a few other signature electrical scarring effects that happen, but think of it this way: lightning here on Earth can make craters.
Yes.
So, and if you have a lightning bolt that's the size of a planet,
right? So I'm just looking up images of these hexagon patterns, and yeah, they're hexagons.
and that's just one. So anyway, Robert Schoch in the film discusses his hypothesis on how an electrical or plasma discharge from the sun, others might say it's a neighboring planetary body. Imagine, when you touch the door handle, you get a little shock sometimes in the wintertime, right? Or just lightning, something is discharging. Imagine two planetary bodies close enough in proximity to one another
that they
opposite charges. Imagine what that discharge is going to look like, okay? That's going to have devastating effects on a planet. And if you look at the Grand Canyon from space, it has a signature Lichtenberg pattern.
Yep.
And it's
looks
not
like a lightning bolt,
It does, and it's
So
not too far away.
I used to mess with wood. You put water on wood and you put a charge on it, and you can get the pattern, and it looks like the Grand Canyon. Yeah,
you can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just when woodworking, if you've got you a piece of wood before you varnish it or stain it, spread water, and you can actually control your pattern by use of the water, right? So if I've got a live wire, safely, in my hand, right, I can put water on the table where I want the pattern to go, and you can even start to play with it really and start to guide your lightning bolt that'll strike on the wood.
Jason is not encouraging anyone to pick up a.
Actually, I am. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
I want to sync up with you later because I want to do that.
Okay,
You're going to teach me how to do it.
Now, Ricardo, if you heard the real story of the guy who taught me how to do it, we were in he's a local dude, good old boy, and we were out in his camper, and he had an old microwave that was of no use. And I woke up one morning after crashing at his pad, and he had this microwave unwired at the back, and he had a piece of wood with the water showed out, and he said, "Remember we were talking about lightning bolts? I'm going to show you." He was sure shit, and I took it home and started using it in the garage. Yeah, you make great patterns with it.
So anyway, there's more to the story with Mars and the disappearance of its atmosphere, but I don't want to spoil it for those people who haven't seen the film because it's, in my opinion, downright terrifying. If that weren't enough, there's more to it.
So plasma hexagon patterns, for everybody at home, they are a complex phenomenon resulting from the interaction of gas voltage and the accumulated charges on the dielectric surface. Yeah, so, it is a known phenomenon.
Look, if they happen here on Earth, we have environmental process that cause high erosion, so they would be eliminated after not that many years. In Mars, it's not the case. They are somewhat preserved by slow erosion process, so it's easier to see them there. But in the
I like that plasma discharge theory, though, and that is a lot of fun. The two planetary bodies. That's exciting.
In regards to the Grand Canyon, if we didn't had a younger Dryas, I would sign up for the electric universe idea that it was caused by discharge. But again, I think it's a cumulative of several things instead.
How many cycles have there been, Ricardo?
Yeah, but the Grand Canyon, look, this is an old battle between uniformitarians and catastrophists. How was the Grand Canyon created? Sure. Some say it's very quickly in 2 or 3 cycles, others in 1 cycle, and others say it takes millions of years of water.
No, I meant cycles of civilization, because you said we have the Younger Dryas, otherwise you'd sign up for it. But what if it happened, well before the Younger Dryas, and it wiped out what was here before, what we call the last civilization?
That's I mean the patterns of the canyon, as Brian said, and are very similar to what a massive electric discharge would cause. Correct. There, like a huge scar that is then amplified by the passing of water, and creates the final effect that you have today. I'm just always, it's hard for me to just pick up one solution and say this explains it all, right? Because that's the problem to me with the electric universe. They are right, they are correct, their science is exact, but they use it to justify absolutely everything that they find. And to me, that's where the sin is, because there might be more than one explanation, and that takes them some credibility, because if they use it, as Brian just showed us, just a few examples of what is almost beyond doubt that we are looking at artificial structures, they use it to explain everything. So
See.
I agree with that assessment. I think it's not just electrical forces at play here, but again, younger dryers is not my area of expertise. Let me share one last photo here because I'm
sure,
please.
Okay, just to give you a sense of how destructive electromagnetic discharge can be. Listen, Mars has this giant scar across it.
Wow.
This scar is an electrical discharge scar.
Yeah, I see. Certainly.
They've reproduced this in the lab, and I guess I can.
That's what it looks like on the wood, no doubt.
But this one specifically, what the heck was it? It's called Crooked Smile. Here we go. Yeah, let me bring up this. I'm side by side. I got to side by side these two things because you'll get a better sense of what I'm talking about here. Bear with me as I get my.
Take your time, man.
Windows.
We can edit, at the end of the day. But yeah, that is precisely a scar. I mean, I see exactly what you're pointing out to me, man. You didn't even have to tell me.
Yeah, but it's the scale of it.
Well, the scale is where people start to balk at it, okay? So I wasn't focusing on the scale. I'm just wanting to tell you that's when I take my wire to my piece of wet wood, that's what I get.
No, I mean, you put the Grand Canyon there, it's just
yeah, it's a tiny little, yeah.
See,
thing on the left is from a lab. And the thing on the right is on Mars, obviously. But you see it's got this center bulge to it. And the left, it goes over and then it goes down. The right, it goes over and then it goes... Sorry. Left goes over and down. Right goes over up. And you have that same thing here. This thing's the size of the United States.
Same thing. Yep.
That was a massive destructive force. Water did not do that.
Mm-hmm.
Volcanoes did not do that.
Mm-hmm.
A tectonic process did not do that. So what caused that scar? Ooh, man, that was a bad day.
Mm-hmm. No shit, man. And the similarities are readily apparent, even though they're not identical. They have patterns off to the left and fracturing, massive in the middle, and as you say, large chunk that doesn't fracture off to the right and up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's crazy stuff. Anyway, so
this is really great, man. Ricardo, you're on mute, man.
I was saying, just a layman's question. The black areas that we see within the lines that then extend to the planet, they say anything about it? It's scarred or scorched, or they have any justification for that? Is it relevant or no?
black lines.
Yeah, inside the scarring, you see like it's
different
scorched.
coloration.
It's dark, it's black.
I don't know. I never heard anything about it.
Maybe some other factor. Well, Brian, you mentioned having to wrap, so if you've got to throw anything else at us before you go, otherwise,
where you can find this, where is your
Well, for those of you who haven't seen the film, I encourage you to start there first. It's on Amazon right now. We've got foreign markets coming in just a few weeks, but if you're in America or if you're in the UK, you can get it on Amazon right now. I do have Blu-rays and DVDs for those people who like that, but otherwise, more foreign streaming platforms coming soon. Start there first, and then you can find me on YouTube at Corey Dobbs, where I've been learning more since the film came out, so I have to keep covering this, and I'm trying to find the independent researchers out there and elevate the material and talk about all these wonderful discoveries. So the story continues on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter at Corey Dobbs as well.
Well, Brian, let me personally thank you for a couple of things before you run. First of all, this was a lot of fun, man. This is really just right in my own personal enjoyment wheelhouse. So I thank you, man. Secondly, I'm really glad to just get to know you, man. I really didn't know who you were coming in, and now I'm excited and I'm pleased to know you. Lastly, I want to thank you for, man, exuding what it is that we are so interested in and like to see here. And that is somebody who has found some information that is important and he believes he's passionate about, and collectively he wants it out for the whole. Not only that, you're also inspiring others and you're concerned with helping others do the same thing you are. It's all very applaudable, man, and I sincerely mean that, and thank you very much for coming and talking to us today.
Thanks,
for being
Jason.
who you are, man.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Ricardo. I appreciate it, you guys.
No. Look,
Yeah.
when Jason spoke about Mars, I said, well, there is no
Yeah.
best person to come and speak than Brian Corey Dobbs. So,
And it's
Yeah.
perfect. It's a happy accident. I look forward to getting to know your work, and I really look forward to all the things you've told us about coming out with John Ward. And when you speak to him, just tell him how much we all enjoy what he's doing and appreciate it as well.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
It was a huge pleasure. As for us,
Absolutely.
Jason, our last announcements, if you want to.
Jason Huffman, you know where to find me, Shaman711X, YouTube, and Rumble. The Institute of Natural Philosophy, please go check out our sister podcast, Universe Unveiled. They have found themselves putting out Dan Richards' episode this week, one of the best talks I've been a part of in a while in that community. Go check it out. Lastly, if you are an independent researcher on any topic whatsoever, and you feel some of the people you see in front of you, like Brian, you identify with them, then please reach out to us and find us at the Institute of Natural Philosophy. Ricardo, to you, sir.
Thank you. So, I'm Ricardo Calvario. You can find me on X. You can find me on YouTube. I go by as History, Myths, and Legends, and our channel where this is going to be published on the Institute for Natural Philosophy. As a last note, it is Christmas, so if you liked something that you saw at the beginning of this video, even if there is the notebooks, they are about $15 each. They have the covers.
Go to our store.
Yeah, they have this.
Get you some cool shit. There's black hoodies, Institute of Natural Philosophy. You can say you roll with us.
And for the moment, that's the only way you can show your support financially for the Institute. Soon there will be more to come. So thank you very much, Ryan. It was an honor once more. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And we hope to talk to you again soon when you have more things to tell. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir.